This is the psychology of influence, a deep exploration into the invisible forces that shape human behavior, the subtle skills that make some people naturally persuasive, and the psychological triggers that cause others to follow without resistance. Published by Audiobook Mantra, all rights reserved. No part of this audiobook may be reproduced or distributed without permission from the publisher. Now, let us begin. Introduction. The invisible power that shapes every room you enter. Influence is the silent currency of human interaction. It determines who people listen to, who they trust, who they follow, and who they quietly ignore. The world rarely moves by force. It moves by influence, the subtle ability to shift thoughts, emotions, and decisions without raising your voice or lifting your hand. Some people have this ability naturally, most do not. But here is the truth. Very few understand. Influence is not a gift. It is a skill, a learnable skill, a teachable skill, a masterable skill. Every leader you admire, every powerful negotiator, every respected voice in a room, they are influential, not because they were born special, but because they understand human psychology better than the people around them. Influence is the art of getting someone to move without pushing them. It is the strength of shaping decisions without forcing obedience. It is the mastery of guiding behavior while appearing effortless. This audiobook will take you into that world, not the manipulative, unethical world of tricking people, but the deeper, more powerful world of authentic influence, the kind that makes people trust you, respect you, and willingly follow your lead. We will explore the science behind persuasion, the psychology behind authority, the emotional triggers that move people, and the invisible social dynamics that control every human interaction. By the end of this audiobook, you will understand why some voices command attention and others disappear, how influence works in the mind long before a person is aware of it, why certain leaders inspire action while others struggle to be heard, how to shape perception, shift behavior, and guide decisions ethically, and how to build influence so deep people follow you even when you're silent. Influence is not about controlling people. It is about understanding people so well that your presence becomes a guiding force. Let's begin that journey now. Chapter 1. The hidden psychology of influence. Every time you enter a room, something happens, silently, instantly, and often unconsciously. People assess you. They measure your confidence. They judge your tone. They scan your posture. They read your energy. They decide, in seconds, whether you matter. This assessment is not personal. It is psychological. Human beings are wired to evaluate others quickly. We are constantly asking one silent question: do I need to pay attention to this person? That question shapes everything. How they listen to you, how they treat you, and how willing they are to follow your lead. Influence begins long before you speak. This is why two people can say the exact same words, yet one is respected and the other ignored. Influence is not about information, it is about perception, and perception is shaped by psychology. To understand influence, you must understand three silent forces that operate inside every human mind: presence, power, and permission. Presence, the energy people feel before they hear your words. Presence is not clothing, it is not wealth, it is not status. Presence is the emotional vibration you bring into a room. People feel it before they understand it. A strong presence slows the room down. People look up. They become alert. They pay attention. A weak presence blends into the background. People look away. Conversations continue. Nothing shifts. Presence is created through calmness, certainty, emotional control, grounded body language, intentional silence, the confidence that doesn't need validation. When your presence is strong, your words carry weight. When your presence is weak, your words become noise. Influence begins with presence. Power, the respect you command without asking power, is not dominance. It is not aggression. True power is psychological weight, the sense that what you say matters. There are two forms of power: external power, title, money, position, authority; internal power, confidence, competence, clarity, self-respect. External power impresses people. Internal power influences people. Influence becomes effortless when your internal power is stronger than your external circumstances. People follow those who look like they know where they are going. People listen to those who seem anchored when everyone else is uncertain. If presence draws attention, power holds it. Permission, the trust others give you to affect their thinking. Influence does not happen by force. It happens by permission. People only allow you to influence them when they feel safe with you, they feel understood by you, they believe you are competent. They trust your intentions. Trust is the doorway through which influence enters. Without trust, people resist. With trust, people open their minds. Permission is granted through empathy, clarity, consistency, and credibility. Influence requires all three forces. Presence attracts, power stabilizes, permission opens the mind. When these forces work together, people begin to follow you naturally, not because they fear you, but because they respect the person you are. Influence begins with who you become, not what you say. Many managers, leaders, and creators try to influence others by learning techniques, persuasive phrases, charismatic body language, clever strategies. But influence does not flow outward first. It flows inward. Influence begins with your emotional stability, your understanding of human behavior, your psychological awareness, your confidence, your internal power, your ability to read people, your presence. People do not follow your words. They follow your energy, your intention, your character, and your clarity. That is the foundation of influence. And this is where your transformation begins. Chapter 2. The Roots of Influence. Why humans follow certain people instinctively. Influence is not random. It is not luck. It is not charm, talent, or charisma. At least, not in the way most people think. Influence has roots, deep psychological roots. Roots that were planted long before modern leadership, business, politics, or social hierarchy existed. To understand influence today, you must understand where it began. Inside the ancient human brain. Influence is not a new skill. It is an ancient survival mechanism. Before humans followed leaders, they followed signals. Before they trusted words, they trusted instincts. Before they respected titles, they respected people who displayed authority through presence, strength, and emotional stability. This chapter explores those origins and reveals why the same primitive triggers still determine influence in the modern world. Influence began as a survival strategy. Imagine ancient humans living in tribes, surrounded by danger, predators, famine, attacks, unpredictable weather. In such a world, the tribe needed a person whose judgment could be trusted. Not the strongest person, not the loudest person, not the most emotional person, but the person who remained calm under pressure, the person who made wise decisions, the person whose presence brought stability, not chaos. Influence originally meant this. When things fall apart, we look to you. This explains a psychological truth that still governs modern interactions. People instinctively follow the person who appears the most psychologically stable in a stressful situation. Not the one who knows the most, not the one with the highest rank, not the one who talks the loudest, the one who stays centered. Your ability to remain calm when others panic is one of the deepest roots of influence, and it is still one of the strongest signals of leadership today. The three ancient triggers that still control modern influence, even though society has evolved, the brain has not. We still use the same survival-based filters our ancestors used to decide who to trust. These triggers determine whether people will follow you or ignore you. 1. The stability trigger. Are you safe to follow? Humans are drawn to people who display emotional predictability. Calm face, even tone-balanced reactions, controlled body language, steady movement, mild expressions. This signals safety. People avoid those who appear angry, erratic, impulsive, or visibly insecure, because instability threatens survival. Influence requires emotional stability. Your energy must feel like a safe place for others to stand in. When people sense you are grounded, they instinctively trust your direction. 2. The competence trigger. Do you know what you are doing? Competence is more than skill. It is clarity. People follow those who display certainty in their decisions, confidence in their knowledge, quick understanding of situations, clarity when explaining ideas, consistency in action and words. Competence tells the brain, following this person improves our chances of success. Without competence, perceived competence, not just actual competence, influence collapses. This is why a person with less knowledge but more confidence often leads more effectively than a person with great knowledge but low certainty. Humans trust clarity more than intelligence. 3. The benevolence trigger. Are you on my side? This is the most underestimated root of influence. People don't just ask, are you strong enough to lead? They also ask, do you care what happens to me? A leader who is competent but cold inspires caution, not loyalty. A leader who is calm but distant inspires respect, not devotion. A leader who is powerful but selfish creates followers who obey, not followers who believe. Benevolence is the sense that you care about others, you want people to succeed. You protect your team, you operate with fairness. You lead with compassion, you do not manipulate for personal gain. This creates psychological safety, and psychological safety creates influence that lasts. People will follow a strong leader. They will admire a smart leader, but they will only stay loyal to a leader who cares. Why these ancient triggers still matter today? Because the human brain has not evolved past them. In the modern world, we still respond to calmness, confidence, clarity, competence, fairness, emotional stability. We still distrust uncertainty, emotional chaos, inconsistency, dominance without empathy, intelligence without warmth. The tools of influence may change: language, communication styles, digital presence, leadership techniques, but the psychological roots remain the same. You cannot skip these roots and expect influence to work. Influence is not built on communication strategies. Communication strategies rest on psychology. Modern influence fails when these roots are ignored. This explains why many leaders, managers, creators, and entrepreneurs struggle. They speak well, but their energy is unstable. They have knowledge, but their presence lacks confidence. They hold authority, but they lack benevolence. They want respect, but they don't project safety. They give commands, but people do not trust their intentions. Influence cannot be manufactured. It must be built, and it is built by aligning your behavior with these ancient psychological triggers. When you understand what humans unconsciously need in a leader, you begin to develop effortless influence, the kind that doesn't need force or persuasion. People follow you naturally. The foundation of influence is internal, not external. True influence does not start with techniques, words, or strategies. It starts with your psychology, your emotional control, your presence, your stability, your confidence, your intention, your ability to understand human instinct. This chapter has shown you the roots. The next chapters will show you the structures built on those roots. How to create influence that feels natural, ethical, powerful, and almost invisible. Chapter 3. The invisible currency of influence. How people sense power before you speak, before you persuade anyone, before you convince, negotiate, inspire, or lead. People feel you, not your words, not your ideas, not your credentials, not your achievements, not your intentions. They feel your presence, the invisible psychological signal you broadcast. The moment you enter a room or appear on a screen, influence begins long before communication. Influence starts in the space between you and the other person, a space that your presence fills instantly. This chapter reveals the invisible currency that determines whether people take you seriously, dismiss you automatically, lean in with curiosity, or tune you out before you say anything. It is not charisma, not charm, not dominance. It is subtler, quieter, deeper, and far more powerful. This currency is perceived authority, the instinctive sense that you are someone worth listening to. Humans pick up this signal in seconds, through cues so subtle that most people don't even realize they are responding to them, but the brain does. Influence lives in the human instinct for hierarchy. Whether we like it or not, humans are hierarchical creatures. Our ancestors survived by recognizing who had strength, wisdom, competence, and status. This instinct still exists, not consciously but biologically. When you enter a room, people's brains automatically scan for signals such as confidence, certainty, emotional stability, ease of movement, grounded posture, relaxed breathing, steady eye contact. This scan happens instantly and automatically. In this moment, the subconscious mind places you somewhere on a psychological ladder, above, equal, or below, and from that position, everything else you say is interpreted. If people place you below them, your ideas require effort to be respected. If people place you equal, they evaluate your ideas neutrally. If people place you above, your words carry extra weight automatically. This is why influence begins with presence, not speech. And presence is built from signals the brain can detect faster than thought. The three subtle signals that determine perceived authority. People don't consciously evaluate these signals, yet they rely on them constantly. These signals determine whether your influence grows or dies the moment you show up. Here they are, woven into a single flow, not bullets, so you can absorb them like a narrative. The calmness of your facial expression, the steadiness of your posture, the control in your gestures, the smoothness of your tone, the slowness of your movements, the consistency in your breathing. These cues tell the brain that you are emotionally grounded. Emotional groundedness is interpreted as strength. Strength is interpreted as safety. Safety is interpreted as authority. Similarly, the clarity in your eyes, the pace of your blink, the directness of your focus, the stillness of your head, the relaxation in your shoulders, the confidence in your silence all send signals of certainty. Certainty is interpreted as competence. Competence is interpreted as leadership. Leadership is interpreted as influence. And beneath all this lies one final layer, your intention. People can feel whether you are trying to impress them, dominate them, convince them, or genuinely connect with them. Intention leaks through your micro-expressions, pauses, energy, nervous movements, tone shifts, breathing patterns. People cannot always explain why they trust one person instantly and doubt another, but their brain knows exactly why. Influence begins with what you don't do. Most people destroy their influence unconsciously through subtle behaviors that signal insecurity. These behaviors include speaking too quickly, over-explaining, apologizing unnecessarily, fidgeting with hands or objects, smiling too much, laughing nervously, avoiding silence, shifting weight repeatedly, filling pauses with unnecessary details. These tiny cracks in presence communicate instability. Instability communicates uncertainty. Uncertainty kills perceived authority. Influence is not built by adding more behaviors. It is built by removing these small signals of insecurity. What you don't do communicates more authority than what you do. People respect leaders who control the pace of interaction. There is a psychological rule that governs every social exchange. The person who controls the pace controls the power. When you speak slowly, move deliberately, pause without fear, breathe deeply, respond thoughtfully, maintain relaxed posture, you communicate one thing: I am not rushed, I am not threatened, I am not overwhelmed. This immediately shifts how people see you. Suddenly, you appear like the anchor in the room, the person who steadies the emotional water everyone else floats on. Fast movement signals urgency. Slow movement signals confidence. Fast speech signals insecurity. Slow speech signals authority. People instinctively trust those who control the tempo of their own behavior. Authority is not loud. It is quiet, centered, controlled. The greatest misconception about influence is that it must be loud, but true authority rarely raises its voice. The most influential leaders throughout history were not the loudest. They were the calmest, the most deliberate, the most composed. People followed them not because of noise, but because of presence. Influence is quiet power. Presence is silent strength. Authority is controlled energy. You do not need to dominate a room to influence it. You only need to anchor it. When your internal state is stable, your external presence becomes magnetic. People unconsciously gravitate toward your energy. They listen more carefully to your words. They give more weight to your perspective, not because you demanded influence, but because you embodied it. The foundation of influence is energetic, not verbal. Words matter, but energy leads. Before a team believes your strategy, They believe your stability. Before a partner accepts your proposal, they accept your calmness. Before an audience listens to your message, they listen to your presence. Before a stranger trusts your advice, they trust your confidence. Influence is not earned through argument. It is earned through alignment, the alignment of your emotions, posture, gaze, tone, energy, and tension. When these elements are internally controlled, you transmit authority before you speak. The next step in mastering influence. Now that you understand the invisible currency of influence, presence, intention, emotional stability, the next chapter will take you deeper into the psychology behind it. Chapter 4 will reveal how people decide whether to respect you within the first 3-5 seconds of interacting with you, and how to control that instinctive judgment. Chapter 4. The psychology of respect. How people decide your value in seconds. Respect is not earned over months. Respect is not earned after long conversations. Respect is not earned once you prove yourself. Human beings decide whether to respect you in 3 to 5 seconds, not consciously, not logically, not through reasoning, but instinctively. Respect, just like trust, attraction, fear, confidence, and authority, is a fast biological judgment triggered before the thinking brain even wakes up. In this chapter, we break down the real psychology behind respect, what people look for, what they respond to, what they avoid, and what instantly elevates you in their eyes. And most importantly, how to control these instinctive judgments to increase your influence everywhere you go. The brain makes fast judgments, not fair ones. When someone meets you, their brain asks 2 questions instantly. 1. Is this person safe? 2. Is this person strong? Safe means emotionally predictable, stable, and not threatening. Strong means competent, confident, and worth listening to. People respect you when the answer to both questions is yes. If you appear strong but not safe, fey people fear you, but don't trust you. If you appear safe but not strong, fey people like you, but don't follow you. But if you appear strong and safe, fey people instinctively respect you. This is the blueprint of influence. The 2 forces that create instant respect. Respect is created through a combination of warmth and authority. Warmth tells people, I am safe. Authority tells people, I am strong. Every moment, every expression, every tone, every gesture communicates one or both of these energies. The people who command respect naturally are those who balance confidence with calmness, directness with empathy, strength with stability, presence with warmth. This balance triggers psychological respect, the deep sense that you are someone worth listening to. Why people don't respect you? Even if you are competent, people do not respect you because you are smart, you are talented, you are educated, you are hardworking. These things matter later. But first impressions rely on emotional indicators, not qualifications. People lose respect for you when they sense uncertainty in your voice, tension in your body, insecurity in your energy, too much eagerness to be liked, fear of confrontation, inability to hold eye contact, hyperactive or rushed movements, apologetic behavior, excessive smiling or nervous laughter. None of these behaviors reveal your true intelligence, but they reveal your psychological position. The brain reads these signals as lower status, lower confidence, lower authority, and instinctively, it adjusts respect downward. This is why good people get ignored and mediocre people get admired, because influence is not talent alone. Influence is presence, posture, emotional control, how people test you unconsciously within seconds. Just like animals quietly test dominance and stability in their hierarchy, humans do the same, but in social and psychological ways. When you interact with someone, they test you through tiny delays before replying, slight shifts in eye contact, subtle changes in tone, controlled interruptions, microfacial expressions, their posture relative to yours. Human beings constantly send and read these signals, not consciously, but instinctively. When you fail these subtle tests by shrinking, apologizing, hesitating, over-explaining, people downgrade you immediately. When you pass these tests by staying calm, controlled, grounded, deliberate, Respect increases without effort. The emotional formula for instant respect. People respect you when your energy communicates three things. I am calm. I am certain. I am not trying to prove anything. Calmness signals emotional control. Certainty signals competence. Non-neediness signals confidence. These three traits create high-value presence. The kind of presence that makes people instinctively pay attention to you. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be dominant. You don't need to be dramatic. You only need to embody inner certainty. People follow certainty. People trust certainty. People respect certainty. Certainty is power. Why influence dies when you seek respect. One of the paradoxes of human psychology is this: the more you try to be respected, the less respected you become. People can sense when you are trying too hard, trying to impress, trying to be liked, trying to appear confident, trying to sound smart. This signals insecurity. Influence dies when people sense that you need their approval. Influence grows when people sense that your value does not depend on their approval. Respect is not given to those who chase it. Respect is given to those who stand firm in who they are. The silent markers of people who are instantly respected. Here are the non-verbal signals people respond to, but written in a single flow, as you requested: steady eye contact, relaxed shoulders, slow controlled movements, calm breathing, neutral facial expression, grounded posture, minimal fidgeting, composed gestures, deliberate pauses, a slight nod of acknowledgement, controlled tone, and the ability to hold silence comfortably. These signals communicate: I am in control of myself. I am not intimidated. I am not threatened. I do not need to prove myself. This is why influence begins before you open your mouth. Respect rises when you are comfortable with discomfort. People lose respect for managers, leaders, and colleagues when they cannot hold tension, stay calm under pressure, deliver honest feedback, stand firm in conflict, maintain boundaries, express disagreement calmly. People only follow those who remain internally steady when others crumble. Think about the leaders you respect most. They are not necessarily the smartest. They are the ones who can walk into pressure without losing themselves. This is what the brain interprets as strength, and strength is the root of psychological respect. Now that you understand the psychological wiring behind respect, how people judge value, how presence triggers instinct, how authority flows from calmness, the next chapter reveals the next layer of influence, how people decide whether to follow you emotionally, not logically. Chapter 5 explores magnetic influence, the type of influence that makes people lean in, trust you, and willingly move in your direction without force. Chapter 5 magnetic influence, how people become drawn to you without force. Influence is not always loud. It's not always commanding. It's not always delivered through persuasion, arguments, or authority. The deepest level of influence is magnetic, the kind that pulls people toward you effortlessly, without pressure, without convincing, without chasing. Magnetic influence works the same way gravity works, silently, constantly, universally. People follow you, not because you push, but because they feel pulled. But what creates this pull? What makes someone naturally influential while others struggle to get even basic attention? This chapter reveals the psychological mechanisms behind magnetic influence, the invisible signals, emotional patterns, and internal energies that cause people to want to listen to you, trust you, and align with you. Influence begins with energy, not words. Words can persuade the mind, but energy persuades the heart. Think of the people you feel comfortable around. You sense their energy before they speak. Think of the people who intimidate you. You sense their energy too. Energy is emotional information transmitted through micro signals, your breathing rhythm, your facial expression, the pace of your movements, your level of certainty, the emotional weight behind your voice. People feel your energy before they hear your message. This is why someone with quiet confidence can have more influence than someone who speaks loudly. Influence is not volume. Influence is vibration. If your presence communicates calmness, confidence, and grounded certainty, people gravitate toward you. If your presence communicates stress, insecurity, or emotional instability, people retreat from you. Your energy is your first message. People are drawn to what feels emotionally safe. The human brain is wired to move toward what feels safe and move away from what feels chaotic. Magnetic influence comes from being an emotional safe zone. People are drawn to you when they feel peace in your presence, predictability in your reactions, emotional stability in your tone, warmth in your eyes, a non-judgmental attitude, acceptance without performance, attention without pressure. People avoid those who are moody, defensive, emotionally unpredictable, easily offended, overly intense, reactive, judgmental. Influence grows when people feel they can be themselves with you. People follow leaders who don't drain them. They follow leaders who regulate them. The more emotionally safe you become, the more magnetically influential you are. Magnetism is created through how you make people feel about themselves. People are naturally drawn to anyone who makes them feel smarter, stronger, more capable, more understood, more valued, more appreciated, more respected. Influence is not about showcasing your greatness. It is about revealing the greatness in others. Magnetic individuals have a psychological gift. They create micro moments of elevation. They speak in ways that raise others. They listen in ways that validate others. They respond in ways that strengthen others. When someone consistently feels better about themselves in your presence, their brain associates you with positive identity, and they unconsciously seek your guidance. This is why being overly critical destroys influence, and being genuinely supportive multiplies it. People follow the emotion you project. Every person carries a dominant emotional frequency, the emotion you radiate even when you say nothing. Some people radiate tension, some radiate warmth, some radiate authority, some radiate fear, some radiate calm certainty. Your emotional frequency is contagious. People absorb it unconsciously. If you radiate calmness, people feel calmer. If you radiate confidence, people feel more confident. If you radiate direction, people feel guided. This is why strong leaders focus on emotional self-mastery. You cannot influence others if you cannot regulate yourself. You are the emotional thermostat of the environment you step into. Magnetic influence comes from depth, not performance. There is a difference between people who are impressive and people who are influential. Impressive people display themselves. Influential people reveal themselves. You don't need to try to entertain or impress to be magnetic. You need depth. The emotional, psychological, and intellectual depth that people rarely find. Depth is felt in your silence, your eye contact, your ability to hold space, your thoughtful questions, your calm presence, your careful attention, your grounded confidence. Depth pulls people in because depth is rare. People crave depth in a world full of superficial noise. Magnetic people move slowly, speak slowly, think slowly. Magnetism thrives in slowness. Quick movements signal nervousness. Fast speech signals insecurity. Rushed decisions signal instability. But slow, steady, deliberate behavior signals confidence, control, power, authority, emotional strength. When you move slowly and speak with intention, people lean in. They take you seriously. They listen with deeper focus. Magnetic influence is felt strongest when your actions say, "I am not in a rush. I am in control." This communicates power. Your influence strengthens when you don't seek validation. Nothing weakens influence faster than neediness. Needing approval, needing praise, needing validation, needing acceptance, needing recognition. Neediness communicates weakness. It drains your influence instantly. Magnetic individuals radiate internal sufficiency. Their value does not depend on external validation. Their confidence does not depend on applause. This is why they have psychological gravity. People move toward them. When you need nothing from others, they give you more than you ask for. The emotional effect of mystery and restraint. Silence creates space. Space creates curiosity. Curiosity creates attraction. Attraction creates influence. Magnetic people do not overshare. They do not over-explain. They do not justify themselves. They do not narrate every emotion. Restraint increases value. Mystery increases attention. Attention increases influence. People are drawn to what they cannot fully read. People are magnetized by those who reveal selectively. You do not need to be cold. You only need to be intentional. Magnetic influence requires being anchored, not reactive. People lose influence when they are easily thrown off center, angered quickly, offended easily, stressed by small things, destabilized by criticism, pressured by others' emotions. People follow emotional anchors, not emotional waves. The more steady you are in the middle of chaos, the more influence you gain, not through force, but through presence. Your calmness becomes authority, your stability becomes leadership, your emotional anchor becomes a magnet. Now that you understand magnetic influence, the psychology of attraction, emotional safety, inner stability, and energetic presence, the next chapter reveals the next level: how influence transforms into persuasion, the ability to guide decisions without ever sounding forceful. Chapter 6. The psychology of subtle persuasion, guiding decisions without force. True influence is not loud, aggressive, or forceful. It does not twist arms or overpower choices. It does not manipulate people or dominate opinions. The strongest persuasion is subtle, almost invisible. It is the art of gently guiding someone's mind until they believe the decision was entirely their own. Subtle persuasion is the highest form of influence because it works without resistance. People don't feel pressured. They don't feel controlled. They don't feel pushed. Instead, they feel understood, valued, respected, and empowered. This chapter reveals the psychology behind that kind of persuasion, the kind that leaders, negotiators, diplomats, elite salespeople, and powerful communicators rely on. This is persuasion that works through emotional alignment, not pressure, through psychological rhythm, not force, through resonance, not argument. Persuasion begins with alignment, not argument. Most people try to persuade by pushing their idea, but the brain resists pressure, even when the idea is good. Subtle persuasion begins with alignment. You position yourself on the same side of the person's emotions, desires, fears, and inner conflict. You reflect their perspective first, because when someone feels seen, they stop defending. And when they stop defending, they start receiving. Persuasion is not pushing. Persuasion is aligning. If someone feels, finally, someone understands me, their mind becomes open like an unlocked door. People say yes. When their identity says yes, every decision a person makes must feel consistent with who they believe they are. Identity drives action more than logic ever will. So subtle persuasion works by engaging the person's sense of self. Instead of arguing with them, you tie your message to who they want to be, who they believe they are becoming, who they are proud to be, who they fear becoming. People don't choose what is logical. They choose what is identity safe. This is why the most persuasive statements begin with identity reflections such as, "You are the kind of person who," someone with your experience naturally, people at your level usually, with your standards you probably prefer. This is not flattery. It is identity alignment, one of the strongest persuasion levers in psychology. People follow the story you tell them about themselves. Persuasion works through emotion first. Logic second. The emotional brain decides. The logical brain justifies. This means you don't persuade through facts. You persuade through feelings that make the facts meaningful. Subtle persuaders know how to shape emotional pathways without being dramatic. Speak with warmth that reduces fear. Speak with certainty that reduces doubt. Speak with calmness that reduces resistance. Speak with sincerity that increases trust. Speak with vision that stimulates desire. Emotion guides the decision. Logic completes it. When you influence emotion, people begin convincing themselves. The power of gentle questions instead of hard statements. Direct statements trigger resistance. Questions trigger introspection. When you ask the right questions, people walk themselves into your conclusion, voluntarily, naturally, effortlessly. Gentle questions like, what do you honestly want long term? What outcome would you be most proud of? What do you think will matter most later? If we removed fear from the decision, what would you choose? These questions bypass defensiveness and activate self-discovery. Subtle persuasion is not about convincing people. It is about guiding them to convince themselves. Never attack resistance. Decode it when someone resists your idea. Most people push harder. This is the worst mistake. Resistance is not opposition. Resistance is information. It tells you where their fear is, where their uncertainty lies, what emotional need is unmet, what identity feels threatened. Subtle persuaders don't challenge resistance, they explore it. Instead of saying, "No, you are wrong," you say, "Tell me what concerns you most." Instead of arguing, you say, "Help me understand what feels risky to you." When resistance is respected, it dissolves. When resistance is attacked, it multiplies. Mirroring without mimicking, the science of psychological rhythm. People feel comfortable with those who operate at a similar emotional rhythm. Their pacing, their tone, their energy level, their communication style, their tempo. Subtle persuasion uses micro-mirroring, not imitation but alignment. If someone is speaking slowly, you slow down feeling emotional, you soften feeling tense, you steady speaking fast, you increase pace slightly but you never copy, you calibrate. This creates unconscious harmony, and harmony makes people feel, "This person gets me, this person feels familiar, I can trust them." Trust opens the door, persuasion walks through it. The power of letting silence work for you. Most people talk too much when trying to persuade. They fill every gap. They over-explain. They try to force clarity. But silence is one of the greatest persuasion tools. Silence creates weight. Silence creates pressure. The good kind. Silence forces the other person to reflect. Silence makes your words land deeper. When you say something meaningful, pause. Let the silence carry it. Silence is where decisions form. People agree faster when they feel ownership. Never present an idea as a command. Present it as a collaboration. People support what they help create. If they shape the idea, they become invested in it. So say things like, "Here is a direction I am thinking. What would you add? How would you shape this so it works for you? What part of this makes the most sense to you?" You are not forcing agreement, you are co-building it. Shared creation leads to shared commitment. Subtle persuasion requires mastery of your own ego. You cannot persuade effectively if your ego is involved. The moment persuasion becomes about winning, proving something, or being right, the influence collapses. Subtle persuasion comes from detachment from outcome, calm confidence, emotional neutrality, genuine curiosity, a desire to elevate, not dominate. Your ego pushes people away, your groundedness pulls them in. The more you release the need to control, the more influence you gain. You now understand the art of persuasion that doesn't feel like persuasion. Alignment instead of argument, identity alignment instead of logic wars, emotional resonance instead of pressure, curiosity-based questions instead of confrontation, rhythmic rapport instead of force, silence as leverage instead of noise, collaboration instead of command, ego mastery instead of emotional reactivity. But persuasion is only half of influence. In the next chapter, we explore another dimension, how to influence through presence alone, without speaking, persuading, or leading. Chapter 7, The Influence of Presence, Commanding Respect without saying a word. There is a level of influence more powerful than persuasion, more immediate than communication, and more difficult to fake than confidence. It is presence, the silent force that makes people pay attention the moment you enter a room. Presence is not about being loud. Presence is not about being dominant. Presence is not about being charismatic in a dramatic way. Presence is the quiet power that makes people feel, someone important just walked in. Something about this person feels grounded. I should pay attention. This chapter reveals how presence shapes influence, why some individuals command respect instantly, and how you can cultivate a presence so strong that people feel your authority before you ever speak. Presence begins with self-command, not attention seeking. Most people try to influence others by focusing outward, trying to impress, convince, react, or persuade. But presence begins inward. You cannot command others if you cannot command yourself. Self-command is quiet but unmistakable. It shows up in how you hold your emotions, manage your reactions, regulate your energy, stay composed under pressure, Move with intentionality. People feel it instinctively. The human brain can detect confidence, anxiety, or uncertainty in a fraction of a second. The secret is simple. People trust those who trust themselves. Presence begins with inner stability. The power of emotional stillness. Emotional stillness is the foundation of presence. Stillness does not mean lack of emotion. It means mastery of emotion. People with influence don't rush, panic, overreact, or vibrate with nervous energy. Their stillness becomes magnetic. It creates psychological gravity. People lean into those who feel calm, controlled, and centered. Stillness communicates, I am safe. I know who I am. I do not fear this moment. I do not need your approval to stand here. When your energy is still, others naturally adjust to your rhythm. You become the emotional anchor in the environment, and anchors are influential by nature. Your breath is your first tool of influence. The fastest way to build strong presence in any situation is to control your breathing. Shallow breath equals shallow presence. Steady breath equals steady presence. Deep, slow breathing sends signals to the nervous system saying, I am in control. I am safe. I do not need to rush. Other people feel this immediately. People sense your internal state, even when you think you are hiding it. When your breathing is measured, your presence becomes grounded. You radiate quiet authority. The physics of movement: slow, intentional, controlled. The most influential people move differently. They don't fidget. They don't rush. They don't jerk. They don't break their own rhythm. Their movements are slow, smooth, deliberate. Why does this matter? Because humans are wired to associate fast, jerky movements with fear, uncertainty, submission, defensiveness. But slow, grounded movement signals authority, certainty, safety, power, confidence. If you want presence, move with purpose. Walk calmly. Turn your head slowly. Sit down with intention. Use your hands sparingly but meaningfully. Every movement speaks, even your stillness. Silence is the sharpest form of presence. People fear silence. They rush to fill it. They talk without thinking. They leak insecurity through unnecessary words. But influential people use silence like a blade, clean, precise, powerful. Silence creates tension. Silence directs attention. Silence enhances your message. Silence forces the listener to lean in. When you speak less, your presence expands. When you allow pauses, your words gain weight. When you stop chasing conversation, conversations begin chasing you. Presence is the mastery of silence. Eye contact that commands, not conquers. Eye contact is one of the purest forms of presence. But it must be the right kind of eye contact. Steady, not staring, warm, not aggressive, confident, not confrontational, patient, not intense, powerful. Eye contact is gentle, but unbreakable. It communicates, I see you. I acknowledge you. I am not intimidated. I am grounded where I stand. The secret is simple. Hold eye contact when listening. Break eye contact briefly when speaking. This instantly makes you appear grounded, thoughtful, and in control of the conversation's rhythm. Posture is a silent signal. The body speaks before the mouth does. Influential posture is open, not closed, upright, not rigid, relaxed, not collapsed, balanced, not stiff. Closed posture signals fear. Collapsed posture signals insecurity. Rigid posture signals nervousness. But open, relaxed posture signals ease and strength. Presence is not about looking big. It's about looking comfortable inside yourself. The power of entering a room with authority. Presence begins before you speak, often before you even reach the center of the room. When you enter, don't rush. Don't look down. Don't shrink. Don't scan nervously. Instead, step in slowly, pause briefly, observe calmly. Allow your eyes to settle, not dart. Fill the space with stillness, not noise. People unconsciously look for emotional leaders in every group. When you enter a room with calm, grounded authority, people feel it. Something about this person demands attention. Presence is not about impressing, it's about expressing. Influential presence does not try to impress people. It does not rely on charisma theatrics. It does not push for approval. Presence comes from expressing your truth without needing validation. It is the energy of someone who knows who they are, does not apologize for existing, is comfortable being watched, is not threatened by silence, is not afraid to slow down, is not desperate to perform. is not fearful of being evaluated. People respect those who seem unaffected by pressure. Why presence makes influence effortless. When your presence is compelling, people listen to you differently. They hear your voice more clearly. They interpret your words more seriously. They respond to your energy more instinctively. They align with your rhythm without realizing it. Presence eliminates the need for force. It creates psychological authority, the kind that makes people trust you, follow you, respect you, listen to you, adjust to you, and believe you. Presence is influence before influence begins. You now understand how presence shapes influence, how silence, stillness, breath, movement, posture, and emotional self-command whisper authority without a single word. But presence is only the beginning. Influence also requires one more critical dimension, the ability to create emotional resonance so strong that people feel connected to you almost instantly. Chapter 8 explores the psychology of emotional influence. How to enter someone's emotional world so they willingly allow you into their mental world. Chapter 8 Emotional Influence. The hidden doorway into people's minds. Influence is not built on logic alone. People are not moved by facts, arguments, or instructions. Not truly. They are moved by what they feel in your presence, what they associate with you emotionally, and how deeply they sense you understand them. If presence earns attention, emotional resonance earns trust, and trust is the gateway into a person's mind. This chapter uncovers the emotional patterns that make some leaders unforgettable, magnetic, and impossible to ignore. It reveals why people follow certain individuals instinctively, without pressure, persuasion, or authority, and how you can cultivate this deeper form of influence. Influence begins with emotional safety. People will never open their minds to you if their emotions are closed. Humans instinctively avoid those who make them feel judged, dismissed, rushed, misunderstood, pressured, insignificant, but we naturally gravitate toward those who make us feel safe, seen, heard, valued, respected, understood. Before someone listens to you, they must feel psychologically safe around you. Emotional safety is not softness. It is not indulgence. It is not letting people do whatever they want. Emotional safety means I can be honest with you without fear. I can express myself without being attacked. I can tell the truth without being embarrassed. I can be imperfect without being crushed. When you create this emotional environment, influence becomes effortless. The power of subtle empathy. Empathy is not about pity. Empathy is not about over-involvement. Empathy is not about solving everyone's problems. Empathy, in influence, means one thing. You show that you understand someone's internal experience, without them needing to explain it fully. Subtle empathy sounds like, "That sounds frustrating. I see why you'd feel that way. I understand what that meant to you. I see the pressure you were under." These simple acknowledgments unlock emotional openness. People don't need you to fix everything. They need you to understand what everything feels like. Once they feel understood, they become receptive. Their defenses lower. Their resistance softens. Their alignment increases. Influence becomes natural. Emotional mirroring, not manipulation, but connection. Humans unconsciously mirror those they trust. But influential people use emotional mirroring intentionally, but ethically. This mirroring is not about copying someone's body language or tone. It is about matching the emotional temperature of the moment. When someone is anxious, you offer calm. Sad, you offer warmth. Excited, you offer enthusiasm. Angry, you offer a steady anchor. Mirroring is emotional attunement. It communicates, "I am aligned with you. We are on the same wavelength. You are not alone in this moment." People follow those who feel in sync with them. Emotional precision, calling out what others can't explain. Highly influential people possess a unique ability. They can articulate someone's unspoken emotions better than the person can themselves. Like, "It feels like you are carrying more than you are admitting. It seems this situation made you feel unseen. You handled this well, even if you don't feel like it." This kind of emotional precision creates deep connection. Why? Because most people don't understand their own emotions clearly. When someone expresses your feelings better than you can, you feel recognized, validated, safe, connected. This is the emotional glue of influence. The law of emotional contagion. Emotions spread faster than logic. Humans catch the emotional state of the person leading the interaction. If you are calm Faye, they feel calmer, confident Faye, they feel more secure, focused Faye, they become more attentive, optimistic Faye, they gain motivation, composed Faye, they regulate themselves. This is why emotionally reactive leaders lose influence. Their instability becomes contagious. Their anxiety infects the room. Their anger spreads through the team. Their panic becomes everyone's panic. But emotionally disciplined leaders elevate the emotional climate. Your presence becomes a stabilizer. Your tone becomes a regulator. Your energy becomes the emotional standard others rise to. This is influence in its purest form. The subtle art of emotional framing. Emotion shapes interpretation. Two leaders can deliver the same message, but one inspires, while the other demoralizes. The difference is emotional framing. If you say, "This is going to be really hard, I hope we manage somehow," you weaken confidence. But if you say, "Yes, this will be challenging, but we're capable and prepared," you strengthen belief. Framing transforms stress into purpose, fear into readiness, difficulty into growth, confusion into clarity, pressure into opportunity. Emotion influences how people interpret reality, which influences how they act. Why people follow those who understand them emotionally. When people feel emotionally seen, they naturally trust more, open up, align with you, accept your guidance, follow your lead, share their ideas, reveal hidden information, seek your approval. Because emotional understanding makes them feel psychologically safe and personally valued. Influence rooted in emotional connection lasts longer and penetrates deeper than influence rooted in authority or persuasion. Emotional influence is the foundation of loyalty, respect, commitment, cooperation, unity, motivation. It is what separates leaders people obey from leaders people believe in. You now understand how emotional influence works, how connection, attunement, and emotional safety create openings in people's minds and hearts. But emotional influence is not enough on its own. There is another layer, one even deeper: identity influence. The ability to shape how people see themselves, what they believe they are capable of, and who they aspire to become. Chapter 9 reveals how true influencers don't just change behavior, they transform identity. Chapter 9: Identity influence, the power to shape who people become. If emotional influence opens the door to someone's mind, identity influence steps inside and rewrites the room. This is the deepest, most transformative form of influence. It is why some leaders don't just motivate people temporarily, they change them permanently. They don't just inspire action, they reshape identity. People may resist instructions, they may question logic, they may challenge authority, but people rarely resist anything that aligns with who they believe they are or who they secretly want to become. Identity influence is the art of connecting your message to a person's sense of self. This is the level where true influence lives. Identity shapes behavior more than rules, pressure, or rewards. Humans do not act based on information alone. They act based on identity, on who they think they are at their core. A person who believes "I am disciplined" behaves differently than someone who believes "I am lazy." A person who sees themselves as a leader behaves differently than someone who sees themselves as a follower. Identity becomes the unconscious script that guides action. If you can influence someone's identity, you influence everything connected to it: their standards, their decisions, their habits, their confidence, their emotions, their behaviors, their resilience, their long-term direction. This is why identity influence is so powerful. It becomes self-sustaining. Once someone adopts a new identity, they begin reinforcing it without your help. The secret: people become who you reflect back to them. Humans look to the people they respect to understand who they are. A subtle comment from a leader can reshape someone's self-concept. "You strike me as someone who can handle pressure well. You think like a problem solver. You are the kind of person people naturally trust. You have leadership instincts you don't fully recognize yet." These statements are not mere compliments. They are identity cues. When spoken with sincerity and precision, they become internalized. People begin to think, Maybe that's true about me. Maybe I am that kind of person. Maybe I can live up to this. Identity influence works because people rise to match the expectations of those they admire. This is the psychological phenomenon known as self-fulfilling prophecy, and the most influential leaders use it masterfully, never manipulatively, always ethically. Identity influence requires precision, not flattery. Flattery doesn't shape identity. People ignore it because it feels cheap and dishonest. Identity influence only works when your reflection of someone is specific, feels true, matches their potential, aligns with their values, is spoken with sincerity. For example, saying, "You are amazing," does nothing, but saying, "You approach problems with clarity," that's a mark of someone who can lead under pressure, creates identity alignment. Effective identity influence is always grounded in observable behavior. The power of naming hidden strengths. Most people know their weaknesses very clearly, but their strengths, that's where they are blind. Highly influential leaders see strengths people don't see. Perseverance hidden under insecurity, creativity hidden under fear, leadership potential hidden under doubt, discipline hidden under chaos, resilience hidden under stress, intelligence hidden under silence. When you name a strength that someone has never acknowledged in themselves, you awaken a new identity within them. It becomes, "I didn't know I was capable of that until you said it." This is the seed of transformation. Identity influence through roles and responsibility. People grow into the roles they are given. If you give someone tasks that reflect a higher identity, they begin to embody that identity naturally. When you assign someone ownership, they become accountable; responsibility, they become reliable; leadership moments, they become confident; problem-solving tasks, they become resourceful; mentorship roles, they become wise; creative opportunities, they become innovative. Identity influence is not just what you say, it's what you trust someone with. Responsibility shapes identity more than praise. Influence through identity alignment. The deepest influence comes when you align your message with who someone wants to be. People are moved by statements that sound like, "This will make you stronger," "This aligns with your values," "This is what leaders like you do," "This is who you are becoming." This matches the standard you hold for yourself. When your expectations align with their aspirational identity, the resistance dissolves. People don't struggle when they feel they are stepping into a better version of themselves. Identity influence can elevate or destroy. Just as identity can lift someone, it can break them if misused. A careless comment can scar someone for years. "You are not leadership material," "You're always messing things up," "You are just not good at this," "You'll never be reliable." Words like these embed themselves into a person's identity. They replay internally long after the speaker forgets them. Influential leaders are extremely careful with the identities they reinforce. They never label someone negatively. They focus on behaviors, not character. They correct actions without defining the person. Identity should be strengthened, not shattered. The invisible influence, helping people see their future self. One of the rarest abilities of influential leaders is this: they see people not as they are, but as they could become. Then they help them see it too. They say, "I see a stronger version of you on the other side of this challenge. You are becoming someone who handles complexity with confidence." This is shaping you into a leader whether you realize it or not. When you show someone their future self, you activate the most powerful force in identity psychology, self-projection. People begin moving toward the image you reflect. They begin making decisions aligned with that future version. They begin living up to a destiny they didn't know they had. This is the highest form of influence. You now understand how identity becomes the engine of influence, how people follow those who help them become better, stronger, clearer versions of themselves. But there is another dimension even deeper than identity: environmental influence. How the spaces, systems, and cultures around people shape their behavior more than willpower ever could. In Chapter 10, we explore how leaders use environment, not pressure, to create lasting change. Chapter 10. Environmental influence. The invisible hand that shapes human behavior. If identity is the internal engine of influence, environment is the external force that quietly directs every decision people make. Most managers and leaders try to influence people through motivation, persuasion, pressure, or encouragement. But the most powerful leaders use something far more subtle and far more consistent. They influence the environment, and the environment influences everything else. Humans like to believe they act out of pure will, but psychology has proven something different again and again. People do not rise to the level of their intentions. They fall to the level of the environment around them. This is why environmental influence is the quiet superpower of great leaders. Environment shapes behavior more than willpower. A person may be disciplined, motivated, inspired, or determined. But if the environment works against them, their behavior weakens, and the opposite is also true. Even a struggling person becomes stronger, more focused, and more consistent when placed in the right environment. Environment influences attention, energy, confidence, focus, creativity, decision making, emotional state, motivation, and even identity. This means the fastest way to influence people is not by telling them what to do, but by shaping the environment where their behavior happens. The environment people work in becomes the behavior they develop. If the environment is chaotic, people become reactive. If the environment is calm, people become thoughtful. If the environment is negative, people become closed. If the environment is energetic, people become active. If the environment is supportive, people become confident. If the environment is oppressive, people become silent. Human behavior adapts to fit the space it lives in. This is why the greatest leaders treat environment as a tool, not a background. They don't just ask, "Why is this person acting like this?" They ask, "What in the environment is encouraging this behavior?" That single shift changes everything. The 3 layers of environmental influence. There are 3 environments that shape people whether they realize it or not: the physical environment, the social environment, the emotional environment. You cannot influence people deeply unless you influence all 3. Let's explore each. The physical environment. How space directs behavior. Studies in behavioral psychology reveal something surprising. People behave differently in different spaces, even when the people and tasks remain the same. A cluttered space creates stress. A spacious environment creates clarity. A dark environment creates fatigue. A bright environment creates alertness. A noisy environment creates distraction. A structured environment creates discipline. Great leaders intentionally design the physical environment to support the behavior they want. They remove unnecessary friction. They make the path of success easy. They simplify processes. They eliminate confusion. They make work feel smooth rather than heavy, because physical ease leads to psychological ease. The social environment who people are around becomes who they become. Humans are shaped by the company they keep, not occasionally, continuously. If you place someone in a group that complains, they will complain. If you place someone in a group that solves problems, they will start solving problems. If you place someone in a group that avoids responsibility, they will avoid responsibility. If you place someone in a group that takes ownership, they rise to that level. People adapt to the standards of the group they belong to. This is why great leaders carefully shape the social environment by pairing people strategically, setting norms about communication, encouraging collaborative behavior, discouraging toxic tendencies early, and modeling the social culture they expect, because the group becomes the gravity that pulls behavior in a certain direction. The emotional environment, the most powerful of all. A workplace may look efficient on the outside, but its emotional climate determines whether people thrive or collapse. People rise in environments where they feel safe, seen, respected, supported, encouraged, trusted, and valued. People shrink in environments where they feel judged, ignored, unappreciated, threatened, micromanaged, silenced. Emotional environment is the invisible air people breathe daily. It determines whether they give their best or just enough to survive. Great leaders intentionally create emotional environments that bring out the best in people. They normalize honesty. They celebrate progress. They treat mistakes as learning. They maintain fairness. They offer psychological safety. When people feel safe, they do not hold back their excellence. Environmental influence works even when you are not present. This is what makes environment the most powerful long-term influence tool. It continues to influence even when the leader is not there. A rule needs enforcement. A speech needs repetition. Pressure needs constant application. But an environment becomes automatic. It runs in the background. It shapes behavior quietly and continuously. Leaders who master environment no longer need to push people. The environment pushes for them. This is not manipulation. It is intelligent design. Small environmental changes create massive shifts in behavior. The greatest leaders understand a secret. You do not need to make huge changes to influence behavior. Small environmental adjustments cause disproportionate results. A clear workflow reduces hesitation. A predictable schedule reduces anxiety. A shared language reduces confusion. A dedicated space reduces distraction. A visible goal increases motivation. A calm tone reduces tension. A supportive culture reduces mistakes. The environment does the heavy lifting. Your job is simply to shape it. Environment determines whether influence lasts or fades. Temporary motivation creates temporary results. Temporary pressure creates temporary compliance. Temporary inspiration creates temporary enthusiasm. But environment influences long after emotions fade. Environment is the soil where all influence grows. If the soil is healthy, people naturally flourish. If the soil is unhealthy, even the most talented people rot. Great leaders do not waste time trying to fix people. They fix the environment that shapes people. And once the environment shifts, the behavior follows. Now you understand how environment silently shapes choices, attitudes, and performance. How great leaders influence behavior without force. But there is one final layer of influence deeper than emotion, identity, or environment: narrative influence. The power to control the story people believe about themselves, the team, and the work. In Chapter 11, we explore how world-class leaders use storytelling, meaning and narrative framing to transform how people think and act. Chapter 11. Narrative Influence. The story that shapes behavior, belief, and identity. If the environment is the air people breathe, narrative is the meaning people attach to that air. Every human being, regardless of culture, age, or intelligence, lives according to the story they believe about themselves and the world. Stories shape decisions. Stories shape confidence. Stories shape effort. Stories shape loyalty. Stories shape identity. And the most influential leaders understand something most people never realize. If you can shape the story, you can shape the behavior. If you can shift the narrative, you can shift the person. Narrative influence is the deepest psychological lever you possess. It reaches where motivation cannot reach, where logic cannot reach, where pressure cannot reach, because people are not driven by facts. They are driven by the meaning they attach to those facts. Every team lives inside a story, whether you shape it or not. People don't show up to work each day based only on salary or duty. They show up based on the story they believe about who they are, why their work matters, what their effort means, whether they belong, and what future they are building. If you do not shape this narrative intentionally, people will create their own narrative, usually a negative, fearful, or limited one. This is why weak teams say things like, "This company doesn't care. No one listens anyway. Our work doesn't matter. We're just here to survive." Leadership is out of touch. These stories destroy motivation long before performance drops. Influential leaders do not wait for unhealthy stories to spread. They proactively create powerful narratives that lift people upward. Narratives are self-fulfilling prophecies. What people believe, they act out. What they act out becomes reality. What becomes reality reinforces the belief. This loop shapes everything. If someone believes, "I am not leadership material," they will avoid responsibility, downplay their ideas, and stay in the background, which confirms the belief. If a team believes, "We always mess things up," they act cautiously, with fear, with low confidence, which produces mistakes, confirming the belief again. But if a leader rewrites the story, "This team is resilient, we recover faster than any other group here," the team's behavior adapts. They rise, they act boldly, they respond with strength. Narrative shifts behavior. Behavior shifts results. Results shift identity. This is the psychology of influence at its highest level. The three narratives every leader must shape. Every powerful team operates based on three internal narratives: the story they tell about themselves, the story they tell about each other, the story they tell about their mission. Let's break them down. 1. The story people tell about themselves. This is the most personal narrative. It determines confidence, effort, initiative, and growth. Great leaders elevate a person's internal story by reinforcing, "You are capable, you add value, you are trusted, you have potential, you belong here, you can grow." These are not compliments, they are identity signals. When someone's identity shifts, their behavior transforms automatically. This is why the most influential leaders don't just praise performance, they reinforce identity. 2. The story people tell about the team. Teams either see themselves as a struggling group or a strong one, a reactive team or a proactive one, a confused group or a coordinated one, a normal team or an exceptional one. Whatever story dominates becomes culture. Influential leaders inject identity statements into the team's language. This team finishes strong. We solve problems, we don't complain. We communicate early. We support each other. We don't hide mistakes. We fix them. We protect our standards. These statements become the unwritten laws of the group. Once the team believes its own story, you no longer need to repeat it. The culture enforces itself. 3. The story people tell about the mission. Purpose is a narrative, not a fact. Two employees may do the same task. One sees it as boring routine, the other sees it as meaningful contribution. The difference is not the task, it is the story. Influential leaders constantly connect work to meaning, saying, "What we do matters because our work impacts people by, this project strengthens our future by, this effort protects our reputation by." When people see the why, their how changes. Effort increases, commitment deepens, excellence rises. Purpose is one of the strongest forms of influence. Reframing, the leader's secret narrative weapon. Narrative influence is not about changing reality. It's about changing the interpretation of reality. This skill is called reframing. A great leader can take a setback and turn it into growth, a mistake and turn it into learning, a challenge and turn it into opportunity, pressure and turn it into purpose, conflict and turn it into understanding. Reframing protects morale. Reframing maintains focus. Reframing strengthens resilience. People follow leaders who give meaning to moments. Great leaders are great storytellers, not storytellers of fiction. Storytellers of meaning. They use analogies that inspire, examples that clarify, stories that humanize, and metaphors that guide. They speak to the emotional brain, not just the logical mind. People act on emotion far more than logic, and stories are emotion in structured form. If you want people to remember, to believe, to commit, to unite, tell a story that makes them feel what the mission means. Narrative influence is the highest form of leadership influence, because when you shape someone's narrative, you shape their identity, you shape their expectations, you shape their associations, you shape their interpretation of events, you shape their confidence, you shape their behavior, you shape their future. Influence begins with words, but it becomes unstoppable when it becomes someone's inner story. You now understand how narrative shapes identity, effort, connection, and culture, how great leaders influence with meaning rather than force. But there is one final layer of influence that completes everything. Cultural influence, the creation of standards, norms, and behaviors that people follow instinctively, even without supervision. Chapter 12 reveals how leaders build cultures where excellence becomes automatic and influence becomes permanent. Chapter 12, Cultural Influence, how leaders shape environments that shape people. If narrative shapes the story people live by, culture shapes the rules people live under. Culture is the invisible operating system of every team. It is the unwritten constitution, the silent agreement, the emotional climate that determines how people behave when no one is watching. And here is the truth most managers never understand. People don't rise to the level of your expectations. They rise or fall to the level of your culture. You can give inspiring speeches. You can set ambitious goals. You can even enforce strict rules. But if the culture contradicts your words, the culture wins every time. This chapter explores the deepest layer of influence, the power to shape an environment that automatically shapes behavior. Culture is not what you say, it's what you tolerate. Leaders often describe their culture using beautiful words. We value excellence. We promote teamwork. We believe in accountability. We respect everyone. But culture is not in the slogans. Culture is in the small behaviors that get rewarded, ignored, or tolerated. If a team says, "We communicate openly, but people hide mistakes," that is the real culture. If they say, "We value excellence, but laziness is overlooked," that is the real culture. If they say, "We respect each other, but gossip spreads unchecked," that is the real culture. Culture is not created by intention. It is created by consistency. What you allow becomes normal. What you ignore becomes accepted. What you reward becomes repeated. What you enforce becomes culture. Every culture has gravity. It pulls people into its behavior. Culture is not passive. It pulls people in, molds them, and teaches them how to behave. In a weak culture, people become cautious, reactive, passive, disengaged. In a toxic culture, people become defensive, competitive, fearful, selfish. In a strong culture, people become confident, proactive, responsible, united. And here is the most powerful insight. Culture influences people faster than rules do. A new employee joins your team. Within 1 week, they absorb how people talk, how problems are handled, how quickly people act, how mistakes are treated, how the manager responds to pressure, how teammates treat each other. Soon they adjust themselves to fit in. Culture teaches them what is normal, long before you ever say a word. The 3 pillars of cultural influence. Every strong culture, in teams, companies, families, even nations, is built on 3 pillars: beliefs, behaviors, belonging. Let's break them down. 1. Beliefs, the emotional rules people live by. Beliefs are the unseen assumptions that guide the team. Beliefs shape effort. We always finish strong. Beliefs shape confidence. We can handle tough tasks. Beliefs shape resilience. We bounce back fast. Beliefs shape accountability. We fix problems. We don't hide them. Beliefs shape identity. We are a high-standard team. Your role as a leader is to plant and reinforce beliefs that elevate performance and unity. These beliefs become the emotional DNA of the group. 2. Behaviors, the visible actions that define the culture. Beliefs shape behavior. Behaviors shape norms. Norms shape results. Powerful leaders reinforce behaviors like speaking up early, sharing credit generously, solving problems collaboratively, maintaining professionalism, owning mistakes quickly, helping teammates willingly, protecting standards consistently. Culture becomes visible in the actions people repeat daily, not the dramatic moments, but the quiet ones. 3. Belonging, the emotional glue of high-performing teams. People perform differently when they feel like outsiders and when they feel like family. Belonging creates loyalty, commitment, effort, creativity, psychological safety, cooperation. Pride. People fight harder for a team they feel part of. People go the extra mile for a group that values them. People protect a culture they feel connected to. Belonging is the energy that turns a group into a tribe. How leaders shape culture, consciously or unconsciously. A leader shapes culture in 4 invisible ways: through their reaction to problems, through their consistency of character, through their emotional regulation, through the example they set. If a leader stays calm during crisis, the culture learns to stay calm. If a leader blames others for mistakes, the culture learns to hide failures. If a leader gives credit generously, the culture learns to celebrate each other. If a leader upholds standards consistently, the culture learns discipline. You cannot escape cultural influence. You shape it whether you intend to or not. The manager's emotional tone becomes the team's emotional climate. If you want to understand a team, look at the emotional tone of its leader. A stressed leader creates a tense culture. A fearful leader creates a cautious culture. A cold leader creates a disconnected culture. A scattered leader creates a chaotic culture, but a steady leader creates stability. A warm leader creates trust. A focused leader creates direction. A confident leader creates boldness. People take their emotional cues from the one in the center. This is influence in its purest form. Culture is reinforced by rituals, rhythms, and repetition. High-performing teams don't rely on one-off speeches. They rely on rhythms, consistent habits that reinforce the culture. These rituals may include quick morning check-ins, weekly reflection meetings, recognition moments, team storytelling, shared problem solving, scheduled celebrations, learning sessions, peer accountability conversations. Rituals turn values into habits. Habits turn habits into identity. Identity turns identity into culture. The power of micro moments. Culture is shaped not by grand events, but by tiny repeated behaviors, micro moments. Moments like a manager's reaction to a small mistake, a quiet word of encouragement, a calm response to pressure, a quick thank you, a fair correction, a consistent standard, a moment of patience. Micro moments accumulate. They become the emotional memory of the team. Influential leaders shape these moments intentionally. Culture outlasts the leader, for better or worse. The greatest proof of cultural influence, it continues even when the leader is away. If the team still communicates clearly, still collaborates effectively, still maintains high standards, still supports one another, still behaves with integrity, your culture is strong. A culture is the ultimate legacy of influence, because it continues influencing long after you stop speaking. Now that you understand how culture shapes behavior automatically, you are ready for the next level of influence. Personal influence, the transformation of yourself into someone whose presence alone shifts the room, lifts morale, builds confidence, and commands respect. Chapter 13 reveals how to become that person, the kind of leader whose character influences without effort. Chapter 13. Personal influence, becoming the kind of leader people want to follow. Every strategy of influence, communication, psychology, persuasion, authority, culture, ultimately leads to one destination. You are the message. You are the standard. You are the signal people respond to. And your presence is the strongest form of influence you will ever possess. Long before people analyze your words, long before they evaluate your skills, long before they trust your strategies, they evaluate you, your character, your energy, your consistency, and your emotional power. Personal influence is not about manipulation. It is not about being charismatic. It is not about dominating a room. It is the quiet force that makes people want to follow you even when they have the choice not to. Some leaders demand obedience. Some leaders negotiate cooperation. But the most influential leaders inspire devotion. This chapter reveals the deep inner traits that create that effect. Influence begins with identity, not techniques. People don't follow titles. People follow identities. Your influence strengthens when your internal identity aligns with your external actions. A leader with a weak identity feels insecure. A leader with a confused identity feels scattered. A leader with a divided identity feels inconsistent. But a leader with a grounded identity becomes magnetic. To have personal influence, you must first know who you are, what you stand for, what you tolerate, what you refuse, what drives you, what grounds you, what you protect. What you value. Clarity of identity makes your leadership unavoidable. People feel it before you speak. Your energy speaks before you do. Influence begins long before your words. The moment you enter a room, your energy announces you. Employees can feel if you are confident or uncertain, calm or chaotic, open or closed, aggressive or grounded, fearful or intentional, distracted or present, caring or indifferent, insecure or self-assured. Humans are emotional antennas. They detect your internal state instantly. The most influential leaders regulate their energy consciously. They do not let mood or stress lead the room. They act as emotional thermostats. They set the temperature instead of absorbing it. Presence, the silent power of personal influence. Presence is not about being loud. Presence is not about being dominant. Presence is the quiet force that makes people feel your leadership, even in silence. A leader with presence holds eye contact without force, listens deeply, speaks with intentional pauses, moves with calm confidence, responds rather than reacts, stands grounded. Not tense, makes others feel seen. Presence is the art of being fully in the moment. When your presence is strong, your influence becomes effortless. The weight of your words depends on the weight of your character. Two leaders can give identical instructions. One is ignored, the other is followed immediately. The difference is not what they said, it is who they are. Character gives words weight. Consistency gives words authority. Integrity gives words power. When people trust your character, your words become commands without sounding like commands. Influence flows naturally from credibility, the law of inner congruence. People follow leaders who are aligned with themselves. When your beliefs, actions, values, and behaviors match, you appear stable and trustworthy. But when your words don't match your actions, your leadership collapses. Influence comes from congruence. If you preach calm but show panic, if you preach hard work but show laziness, if you preach respect but show disrespect, if you preach accountability but blame others, your influence dies. Personal influence begins the moment your inside matches your outside. Emotional ownership, the foundation of respect. People lose respect for leaders who explode under pressure, blame others for failure, avoid difficult conversations, act defensively, react emotionally, operate from insecurity. But people admire leaders who own their mistakes, admit what they don't know, apologize sincerely, handle conflict calmly, take responsibility for outcomes, act with emotional maturity. This kind of leader becomes unshakable, not because they know everything, but because they own everything. Ownership is influence, the power of emotional stability. If your emotions are unpredictable, your leadership becomes unsafe. People will avoid bringing you problems, hide their mistakes, and walk on eggshells around you. But when you are steady, people trust you faster, open up more honestly, take more initiative, communicate more clearly. Emotional stability is one of the most attractive leadership qualities. People naturally follow those who calm their anxiety rather than magnify it. Confidence without arrogance. True confidence is not loud, it is grounded. It does not need to be proven. It does not need validation. It does not need grand gestures. Arrogance seeks attention. Confidence seeks clarity. Arrogance pushes people away. Confidence pulls people closer. Influential leaders project quiet self-assurance, not by showing off, but by standing firm in who they are. Boundaries, the silent language of self-respect. People treat you the way you train them to. Without boundaries, you become a leader who is ignored. With healthy boundaries, you become a leader who is respected. Boundaries look like saying no without guilt, stopping disrespect immediately, enforcing standards consistently, holding firm to your values, not allowing emotional manipulation. Boundaries communicate self-worth. Self-worth attracts respect. Respect strengthens influence. Magnetic leaders practice the art of stillness. Stillness is not inactivity. It is the power to remain composed while others spiral. Stillness is a form of strength. It keeps your thinking sharp. It reduces errors. It calms the people around you. It prevents panic. Influence requires presence. Presence requires composure. Composure requires stillness. The mirror effect. People become what you are. People take emotional, behavioral, and psychological cues from leaders. If you complain frequently, they complain. If you handle stress poorly, they crumble. If you talk negatively, they adopt negativity. If you blame others, they avoid ownership. But when you model discipline, people rise. When you model integrity, people respect you. When you model humility, people trust you. When you model excellence, people elevate themselves. The most powerful way to influence is not through instruction, but through example. Personal influence is a daily discipline. Influence is not built in one speech, one meeting, or one moment. It is built in your tone, in your attitude, in your reactions, in your priorities, in your consistency, in your emotional habits. People follow what they repeatedly see, not what they occasionally hear. Every day, you are teaching your team how to act by the way you act. This is influence in its purest form. Now that you understand how personal influence works, inside out, not outside in, you are ready for the final transformation, reputational influence. The kind of influence that follows you into every room, speaks for you when you say nothing, and opens doors long before you arrive. In the next chapter, we explore how to build a reputation so powerful that people trust you, respect you, and listen to you before you ever speak. Chapter 14. Reputational influence. The power that works even when you're not in the room. There is a level of influence far deeper than persuasion, far stronger than authority, and far more powerful than charisma. It is the influence that follows you, speaks for you, protects you, elevates you, warns others not to underestimate you, and makes people treat you with respect before you ever open your mouth. This is reputational influence, the kind of psychological power that operates in silence. You don't have to be present. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to convince anyone. Your reputation does it for you. Reputational influence is the highest form of social power because it is earned through who you are, not what you say. It is the long shadow your character casts. It is the echo of your actions. It is the emotional memory people carry about you. And once you build it, it becomes one of the strongest assets of your leadership. Your reputation is a story people tell about you. Every person you interact with is constantly asking the same invisible questions. Can I trust you? Are you competent? Are you consistent? Will you keep your word? Do you treat people fairly? Are you emotionally safe? Do you make things better or worse? Your reputation is the collective answer to those questions. A strong reputation precedes you like a glowing introduction. A weak reputation follows you like a silent warning. You cannot control what people say about you, but you can control what they experience from you. And people talk based on experience, not assumptions. Reputation is built in small moments, not grand gestures. Most leaders think reputation is shaped by big successes, big speeches, or big accomplishments. It isn't. Reputation is shaped in the tiny moments people never forget. The moments that reveal your real character. How you speak to someone when you're stressed, how you treat the junior staff, how you behave when no one important is watching, how you respond to mistakes, how you treat people who can't give you anything, how you handle pressure, how you handle your own failures, how consistent you remain in your values. People may forget your results. They never forget how you handled the little human moments. That is where reputational influence is built. First impressions begin your reputation, but consistency protects it. First impressions are powerful, but first impressions without consistency become manipulation. If you appear calm only during your first meeting, if you appear disciplined only when observed, if you appear respectful only to impress, your reputation collapses because people feel the inconsistency. Consistency is the real foundation of reputational influence. It tells people, this is who I am, not sometimes, always. When people can predict your behavior, they trust you. When they trust you, your reputation becomes solid. The three silent builders of reputation: competence, character, and composure. Reputational influence rests on three invisible pillars. When these pillars are strong, your name carries weight. 1. Competence. People respect what you consistently execute with excellence. Competence communicates reliability, intelligence, mastery, and value. A leader who is good at what they do becomes difficult to ignore. 2. Character. Character is the emotional truth people feel about you. Do you honor your word? Do you treat people fairly? Do you take ownership? Do you show integrity? Character makes people trust your leadership even when you're not present. 3. Composure. Composure is your ability to remain calm under pressure. People fear leaders who explode. They respect leaders who stay steady during chaos. Composure makes people confident in your decisions. It is one of the rarest traits, and therefore one of the most powerful. Your reputation becomes your social credibility. Once your reputation is established, people begin to listen to you faster, trust you sooner, agree with you easier, respect your boundaries naturally, Value your contributions more. Defend your name in your absence. A strong reputation gives you psychological momentum. Opportunities come easier. Conflicts resolve smoother. Negotiations start more favorable. Your reputation becomes your silent ambassador. The hidden danger: your reputation is always ahead of you. Long before you meet someone, your reputation has already arrived. A comment from a colleague, a story from someone who worked with you, a memory someone shares about how you handled a situation, a rumor, a compliment, a warning. Your reputation enters every room before you do, and it shapes the energy people project towards you. This means you must guard your reputation more carefully than your achievements. Achievements fade, reputations endure. How poor leaders destroy their reputation without realizing it. A reputation doesn't collapse suddenly. It crumbles slowly through repeated small fractures. Every time you raise your voice unnecessarily, a crack forms. Every time you blame instead of owning your role, a crack forms. Every time you break a promise, a crack forms. Every time you act out of insecurity, a crack forms. Every time you gossip, a crack forms. Every time you disrespect someone publicly, a crack forms. Every time you embarrass someone, a crack forms. Eventually the cracks combine, and influence is lost. Reputational damage is almost always self-inflicted. The reputational echo, what people say when you're not there. Influential leaders don't chase admiration, they earn stories. The quiet stories people tell about you create your reputational echo. He listens, she stays calm. He's fair, she doesn't gossip. He's dependable, she treats people with dignity. He knows what he's doing, she keeps her promises. These simple sentences build a mountain of respect, and respect is the currency of influence. Reputation is the final stage of influence. The journey of influence moves through stages. Stage 1, behavior influence, your actions. Stage 2, emotional influence, your presence. Stage 3, psychological influence, your authority. Stage 4, cultural influence, your environment. Stage 5, reputational influence, your identity in their mind. When you reach this stage, you no longer push for influence, you attract it. People follow you naturally. People trust you instantly. People respect you deeply. People speak well of you even when you're not present. This is the highest level of leadership. Now that you understand reputational influence, the power that continues working even in your absence, the final step is this: legacy influence. How do you build influence that outlives your position, outlasts your career, and elevates people long after you're gone? In the next chapter, we explore the rare level of influence that turns a leader into a legend. Chapter 15. Influence as a lifelong identity. Influence is not something you switch on when you walk into a meeting or when you stand in front of a room. It is not a performance you rehearse or a script you memorize. Influence is an identity. It is who you become when no one is watching, when situations become difficult, when pressure shapes your behavior, when people look to you for direction without you even realizing it. Most people chase influence the wrong way. They want the techniques, the tactics, the shortcuts, the one-line persuasion secrets that promise instant power. But true influence is not built on tricks. It is woven through character, consistency, and presence. This is where your evolution takes a deeper turn. Influence stops being something you do and becomes something you are. Influence becomes your posture, your energy, your way of moving through the world. It becomes the way people feel when they sit beside you, the way they trust you without proof, the way they follow your ideas before you even finish, explaining the way they mirror your certainty, the way they seek your guidance, quietly, respectfully, consistently. People don't follow the loudest person. They follow the person who feels centered. People don't trust the most knowledgeable person. They trust the most grounded. People don't admire the flashiest person. They admire the most consistent. Influence at its highest level is built through an inner stillness that others can sense but cannot explain. There is a vibrational signature to it, a kind of calm power that whispers instead of screams. This is the stage where influence becomes effortless, not because you are perfect, but because you have learned how to align your external presence with your internal intention. You live with clarity, you speak with purpose, you move with intention, you react with emotional intelligence, you lead with quiet confidence, you stand with unwavering truth. This is the identity of an influencer in the deepest psychological sense. Someone whose presence creates change, whose words reframe reality, whose energy recalibrates a room. People become better around you. People think deeper around you. People see clearer around you. People grow faster around you. Influence becomes your shadow, always present, always shaping, always guiding. And the world begins responding to you differently because you have stepped into a version of yourself that commands respect without demanding it. Influence becomes your lifestyle and your legacy, becoming the person people choose to follow. Influence is not about control. Influence is not about manipulation. Influence is not about winning arguments or proving superiority. Influence is the art of shaping reality through presence, intention, and understanding. It is the silent force behind every extraordinary leader, every respected mentor, every magnetic personality, every individual who seems to move through the world with effortless command. But the deepest truth is this: influence begins inside you long before it appears around you. It begins in the discipline you apply when no one sees you, in the values you uphold when no one can reward you, in the emotional control you practice when everything tries to provoke you, in the integrity you maintain when shortcuts feel tempting, in the empathy you extend even when it's inconvenient, in the clarity you protect even when the world is chaotic. Influence is not a talent. It is a transformation. It is a journey that reshapes your mind, your emotions, your habits, and your identity. And as you grow, people will notice. They will feel it. They will respond to it. They will trust it. People will begin turning to you, not because of your title, not because of your status, not because of your authority, but because of your presence. That is real influence. That is rare influence. That is the influence that lasts. As you step forward from this book into your next chapter, carry this truth: you do not need to fight for influence. You only need to become the person worthy of it. When your character is strong, your influence becomes natural. When your intention is pure, your influence becomes respected. When your presence is calm, your influence becomes magnetic. When your actions are consistent, your influence becomes undeniable. This is the future waiting for you. Not just to influence others, but to elevate them. Not just to lead people, but to transform them. Not just to gain respect, but to inspire it. Not just to build followers, but to create leaders. Influence is your path. Influence is your power. Influence is your responsibility. And now you are ready for it. You've been listening to The Psychology of Influence: Why Some People Move Others Without Force or Persuasion. Written and produced by Audiobook Mantra. Narrated by Audiobook Mantra. Thank you for listening. If this audiobook expanded your awareness or sharpened your understanding of influence, consider exploring more psychology and leadership titles on the Audiobook Mantra channel. Until next time, use your influence wisely, lead with intention, and become the kind of person others naturally follow.